World Constitutional Day, August 1st, 2024. The Presidency of the Republic in the Federal Constitution of Brazil. Hello, to welcome to another World Constitutional Day, a traditional event that takes place on August 1st of each year, and in which we can talk a little about the theme that involves the federal constitutions around the world. My name is Luis Fernando Rodrigues Pinto Jr., and I am a public prosecutor for the Public Ministry of São Paulo. Until last March, I was working in the Office of the Attorney General of Justice as a Vice Attorney General of Justice. And now I'm working at habeas corpus area on the Court of Appeal of São Paulo State. In previous years, I talked to you about the profile of the Brazilian public ministry in the federal constitution, then about the Brazilian electoral system, and last year about some relevant themes comparing the Brazilian federal constitution and North American federal constitution. This year, I will talk a little about how the Brazilian constitution determines the responsibilities of the President of the Republic. Remembering that a constitution is the set of laws, norms, and rules of a country or an institution. It regulates and organizes the functioning of the state and is the maximum law that limits powers and defines the rights and duties of citizens. No other law in the country may conflict with the Constitution. Well, this subject about the President of the Republic can be found at the Chapter 2 of the Constitution of Brazil. Let's talk about it. First of all, the Chapter 2 say the executive branch. Section 1, from the President and Vice President of the Republic. This begins at Article 76. The executive power is exercised by the President of the Republic, assisted by the Ministers of State. The election of the President and Vice President of the Republic will take place simultaneously on the first Sunday of October, in the first round, and on the last Sunday of October in the second round, if any of the year prior to the end of the current presidential term. The election of the President of the Republic will involve that of the Vice President with him registered. They registered together before. The candidate who registered by party politician obtain an absolute majority of votes, excluding blank and no votes, will be elected president. If no candidate reaches an absolute majority in the first vote, a new election will be held within 20 days after the result is announced, with the two candidates with the most votes competing and the one who obtains the majority of valid votes being considered elected. If before the second round is held, a candidate dies, withdraws, or is legally prevented from doing so, the candidate with the highest number of votes will be called from among those remaining. If in this case there remains, secondly, more of a candidate with the same vote, the oldest candidate will qualify. The President and Vice President of the Republic will take office in a session of the National Congress, providing the commitment to maintain, defend, and comply with the Constitution, observe the laws, promote the general good of the Brazilian people, sustain the union, the integrity, and independence of Brazil. If 10 days after the date set for inauguration, the President or the Vice President, except for reasons of force majeure, has not assumed the position, this will be declared vacant. The Vice President will replace the President in the case of impediment and will succeed him in the case of vacancy. the Vice President of the Republic, in addition to other duties that conferred on him by complementary law, will assist the President whenever he called up for special missions. In case of impediment of the President and Vice President, or vacancy of their respective positions, the President of the Chamber of Deputies, then the Federal Senate, and finally the Supreme Court Federal will be called to assume the presidency in this order. If the position of President and Vice President of the Republic become vacant, a new election must happen 90 days after the last vacancy opens. And if a vacancy occurs in the last 2 years of the presidential period, the election for both positions, it will be done 30 days after the last vacancy by the National Congress in accordance with the law. In either case, those elected must complete the period of their predecessors. The term of office of the President of the Republic is 4 years and will begin in January 1st of the year following his election. The President and Vice President of the Republic may not, without permission from the National Congress, be absent from the country for a period exceeding 15 days under penalty of loss of position. They can have a second term just one time. Now, let's talk about Section 2 of Chapter 2. This section shows the attributions of the President of the Republic. Article 84. The President of the Republic is exclusively responsible for, and let's see all of them. Appoint and dismiss Minister of State. Exercise, with the assistance of Ministers of State, the superior direction of the federal administration. Initiate the legislative process in the manner and in the cases provided for in the Constitution. Excuse me. Sanction, promulgate, and publish laws, as well as issue decrees and regulations for its faithful execution. Veto bills in whole or in part. Provide by decree on organization and functioning of the federal administration when it does not imply increase in expenditure or creation or extinction of public bodies. Extinction of public functions or positions when vacant. The President is also responsible for maintain relations with foreign states and accredit their representatives diplomatic, conclude international treaties, conventions, and acts, subject to referendum of the National Congress, declare a state of defense and a state of siege, decree and execute federal intervention in the states, if necessary, of course, send message and government plan to the National Congress on the occasion of the opening of the legislative session, exposing the country's situation and requesting measures that he deemed necessary. Grant pardon and commute sentences with hearing, if necessary, of the bodies established by law. Exercise supreme command of the armed forces. Appoint commanders of the Navy, Army, and Air Force. Promote their general officers and appoint them for positions that are exclusive to them. Also, appoint, after approval by the Federal Senate, the ministers of the Federal Supreme Court and the Superior Courts, the governors of territories, the Attorney General of the Republic, the President and directors of the Central Bank, and other civil servants when determined by law. About the appointment of the Federal Supreme Court and Attorney General of the Republic, I talk in past mentioned here last year and the year before. Also, the President appoint the ministers of the Court of Auditors of the Union and appoint the magistrates in the cases provided for in this Constitution and Advocate General of the Union. Appoint members of the Council of the Republic and convene and preside over the Council of the Republic of the Defense National Council. Declare war in the case of foreign aggression, authorized by Congress National or endorsed by it, when occurring between legislative sessions, and under the same conditions, decree in whole or in part national mobilization. Celebrate peace, authorized or with a referendum by the National Congress, conferring decorations and honorary distinctions, allow in the cases provided for in complementary law that foreign forces transit through national territory or stay there temporarily. Also send to the National Congress the multi-annual plan, the budget guidelines bill, and the budget proposals provided for in this Constitution. Submit annually to the National Congress within 60 days after the opening of the legislative session the accounts for the previous year. Provide and terminate federal public positions in accordance with the law. Issue provisional measures with the force of law and exercise other duties provided for in this Constitution. So that's a lot. And finally, let's talk about Section 3, the responsibility of the President of the Republic. Nowadays, these are being talked a lot in the United States. Article 85. The President of the Republic will respond for crimes of responsibility if his acts violate the federal Constitution and especially against the existence of the Union, the free exercise of the legislative power, the judiciary power, the public ministry, and constitutional powers of the federation units, against the exercise of political, individual, and social rights, the country's internal security, probity in administration, the budget law, and compliance with laws and court decisions. These crimes should be defined in a special law which establish the procedural and judgment standards. But necessarily, this special law must follow some rules. They are admitted the accusation against the President of the Republic by 2/3 of the Chamber of Deputies. He will be submitted to trial before the Federal Supreme Court in common criminal offenses, or before the Federal Senate in crimes of responsibility. Then, the President will be suspended from his duties in common criminal offenses if the complaint or criminal complaint is received by the Federal Court of Justice. In crimes of responsibility after initiation of the process by the Federal Senate. If after the period of the 180 days the trial is not concluded, the President will be removed from office without prejudice to the regular continuation of the trial. Until a conviction is handed down in common infractions, the President of the Republic will not be subjected to arrest. The President of the Republic, during the term of his mandate, cannot be held responsible for acts outside the exercise of his functions. Well, these are the commandments regarding the presidency of the Republic provided for in Brazilian's federal constitution. Presidential regimes have been facing around the countries that adopted them questions regarding social order and efficiency, just as other Republican and Democratic regimes are resentful of not being able to bring the well-being they so desire to society. But certainly, the freedom that democratic regimes allow to the people, based on the structure of the constitutions, cannot be delegated to the background. Difficulties must be overcome, but always respecting the Constitution, the law, and the will of the people. Thank you very much. Happy World Constitutional Day 2024. See you next year. Bye-bye.